The call came at 2:17 a.m. I didn't answer it the first time, or the second. By the third, I was already awake, staring at the ceiling, counting the cracks like they owed me answers. My phone kept vibrating against the nightstand. Persistent, desperate. I let it ring a fourth time before finally picking it up. Hello? A breath, ragged, uneven. Then my father's voice, strained, unfamiliar. Where are you? I didn't respond immediately. I sat up slowly, letting the silence stretch just enough to make him uncomfortable. I moved out, I said flatly. Another pause. Then, panic. They're saying things. Your mother, your sister. I don't understand what's going on. They said you left, that you snapped. I almost smiled. Snapped. That's what they were calling it now. My eyes drifted to the packed suitcase by the door. Still zipped. Still untouched since the night I left. I didn't snap, I said quietly. Then why did you leave like that? Why didn't you come back? It's been weeks. Did Mom tell you what she did? Silence. Thick this time, heavy. No, he admitted. Of course she didn't, because the truth wasn't something she could twist without breaking it completely. I leaned back against the headboard, staring into the dark. She told me my job was done, I said. Then she threw a glass at me. He inhaled sharply. But that wasn't even the part that mattered. That was just the moment everything finally surfaced. Because the real betrayal? That started long before the glass shattered at my feet. It started with 5,000 and the quiet understanding that I was never more than an investment they planned to cash out. I paid for my sister's tuition without hesitation. $5,000, gone in a single transfer. No argument, no conditions. Just a simple belief. Family takes care of family. I remember the way my mother smiled that day. Soft, proud, almost relieved. You're doing the right thing, she said. I believed her. That was my first mistake. After that, things shifted. Subtly, quietly. At first it was small things. My favorite mug disappearing from the kitchen. My laundry moved, then left unfolded. Doors closing when I entered rooms. Conversation stopping mid-sentence. I told myself I was imagining it. Stress, work, overthinking. But then came the whispers. Late at night. Through thin walls and thinner patience. He doesn't need to know yet. We'll tell him when it's done. He's already paid for everything. I remember lying in bed, staring at the ceiling again, my chest tight, but my face calm. Always calm, because something in me already knew. I just needed proof. So I started watching, not confronting, not reacting, just observing. My mother's phone habits changed first. Always face down, always within reach. My sister avoided eye contact. Too quick to agree with everything I said. Too careful. Like she was rehearsing guilt. And my father? He was distant. Not cold, not cruel. Just absent. Like he was standing in a room where something was wrong. But choosing not to turn on the lights. That told me everything. Because silence isn't ignorance. It's permission. So I dug deeper. Quietly. Patiently. I checked the shared bank account first. Small withdrawals. Nothing obvious, but frequent. Then I found the second account. Not mine. Not shared, but funded. By me. That's when it clicked. The tuition wasn't the end. It was the beginning. A transaction. An exit strategy. And I was the one being phased out. Not as a son, but as a resource. I didn't feel anger. Not yet. Just clarity. Cold, precise. Like solving a puzzle where the final piece finally slides into place. So I kept digging. Because if they were willing to erase me quietly, I wanted to know exactly how deep the lie went. And more importantly, who was really behind it. I traced the money first. Every transfer. Every late-night withdrawal. The trail was meticulous. Too meticulous for an accident. My sister's tuition was the bait. But the hooks ran deeper. There was a new account, under her name, under my mother's control. Every cent I sent vanished into it like smoke through fingers. And then I found the messages. Short, innocuous at first, but patterns emerged. He trusts us too much. to keep it quiet until it's done. He'll never see it coming. I read them in silence, leaning against the doorway of my empty room, suitcase untouched, heartbeat steady. I didn't feel betrayal yet. Not fully. Not until the realization sharpened. I had been played. Every word, every smile, every thank you was a calculation. I wanted proof, solid proof, something they couldn't spin or deny. DNA tests came next. A quiet, clinical way to validate a suspicion I barely dared to voice. I watched, calm as the kit arrived. I left it in the drawer for 2 nights before touching it. Then I handled it slowly, deliberately. I sent it off myself. No one could interfere. No one could twist the results. While waiting, I observed subtle habits, phone patterns, hesitations in conversation. My mother had always been composed, too composed, but even steel bends under heat. I saw her slip. Once, twice. A glance that lingered too long at my father. A whisper I wasn't meant to hear. Everything was a confession, if you knew how to read it. I started documenting quietly. Screenshots, receipts, notes. Every piece would matter later. Every little lie stacked like bricks in a wall. And I was building a fortress. Around truth. Weeks passed. My father called more often now. Frantic, desperate. He sensed it. Something was off. Something had shifted. I listened politely, gave nothing away. Inside, the storm churned. Cold, controlled, exacting. The moment of revelation didn't sneak in. It announced itself. A single email from the lab. The results. I stared at the numbers. Names, percentages. Solid, unarguable. The betrayal was no longer a theory. No longer a suspicion. It was fact. And I held the power now. I could confront. I could destroy. But I didn't move immediately. Patience had its own weight. I waited until the right moment. The moment when truth would hit harder than any shout, any fight, any plea. And when I finally decided to act, I wasn't angry. I was precise, controlled, cold. Because by then, I knew something my mother and sister would never grasp. The one who keeps calm in the storm is the one who always wins. I walked into the living room like I belonged there. Everything was exactly as it had always been. Mom in her chair, knitting absent-mindedly. Sister scrolling through her phone. Father reading the paper, pretending not to notice me. I held the envelope in my hand, thick, official-looking. I didn't speak at first, just stood there, letting the silence stretch, heavy and accusing. Mom looked up eventually, a polite, practiced smile. "You're back." I nodded, slowly. Yes, no warmth, no relief, just acknowledgement. I placed the envelope on the coffee table. "Open it." Her smile faltered. My sister glanced nervously. My father set the paper down, eyes narrowing. I waited. The seconds dragged, each one punctuated by the soft shuffle of my mother's knitting needles. Finally, she opened it. Her eyes flicked over the results. Recognition hit. Fear followed immediately. The kind that made her body rigid. I watched her carefully, silent, observing the cracks in her composure that had never been there before. "You knew," she whispered, voice barely audible. "I didn't know," I said softly. "I suspected." Her hands trembled. The knitting needles fell. You did this for what?" she stammered. "To prove what?" I leaned forward, calm, cold. "To show you that the truth has weight. That lies, no matter how well-dressed, always fail under scrutiny." My sister looked down, shame burning her face. Father remained silent. Not shocked. Silent approval? Maybe fear? I didn't care. Because the damage wasn't in words. It was in knowing. The envelope didn't just hold numbers. It held everything. Betrayal, deceit, manipulation, the proof. And they couldn't deny it. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I didn't cry. I simply waited and watched as the reality settled over them like a cold, suffocating blanket. The silence was deafening. Mom's eyes glistened, not with tears for me, but with panic. You, you think you can just, she started. I shook my head, calmly. I don't think. I know. Then I stood, slowly, methodically. Everything you wanted from me is already gone. I turned toward the door, suitcase finally in hand. Every step measured, every breath deliberate. Behind me, the room was frozen. They understood, finally. I had nothing left to give them. And yet, I had everything. Control, truth, power. The final door click echoed through the house, and with it I left. Not in anger, not in revenge, but in absolute, unshakable certainty.